Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to present our work regarding prediction of risk of mortality using a scoring system that derives its prediction from multiple physiological parameters. There is no conflict of interest to declare. We believe hip fracture is yet another marker for failure of physiology and could be a surrogate marker for future mortality. Risk prediction is done to identify patients who are at higher risk of dying within the next 30 days and possibly longer than that. Knowing this would be helpful for both us, the clinicians, and the patients and their relatives in the following ways: consenting, treatment escalation, care planning, and potentially choosing who could be preoperatively optimized. Are there any tools for risk prediction? Many of the available tools are clunky to use and are either too simplistic or too blunt to give a good separation of true physiological compromise. Recently, there has been some publication which correlates to a single physiological parameter like admission hemoglobin. Nottingham Hip Fracture Score is one that is most popular. By using this, you can divide the patients into two groups, low risk and high risk. Low risk patients have a predicted mortality of 3.5% at 30 days and 13.7% at 1 year, and high risk patients have 15.9% and 45.5% at similar time scale. What are the differences between Nottingham Hip Fracture Score and Compass Score? Nottingham Hip Fracture Score uses 7 variables and Compass Score uses 16 variables. Apart from hemoglobin, none of the variables in the Nottingham Hip Fracture Scores could be modified in short term, and therefore it is not easy to measure any changes after optimization. But with Compass Score, there are potentially 8 variables one can change in short term with appropriate medical management, and redoing the score after this could be a surrogate marker for optimization. We did a retrospective analysis of the Compass Score of 686 patients on admission and mapped their short-term and long-term outcome being mortality, as this is a clearly identifiable endpoint. The period we covered was for 18 months between April 2015 and September 2016. All patients had a virtual follow-up and through the electronic medical records. Among the 686 patients, there were more female patients with hip fractures, and the average age for each group was roughly the same. About 11 patients received non-operative treatment for their fracture. The headlines now. Out of the 686 patients, 44 died within 30 days, i.e. 6.4% mortality rate. Nearly 26% died within a year, 36% died within 2 years, and so far, 42.4% patients died at the last follow-up around 4 years. The average age of death was 87 years. Of those who were treated non-operatively, 73% patients died within 2 weeks after admission. Credit to the team making the judgment for those patients and not subjecting them to an unnecessary operation. Literature tells us that males die more than the females. At 30 days, 7.4% males died in comparison to 5.9% females. The rest are shown on the table. This is an information-heavy slide, and to make it easy to understand, I will reveal different sections one by one. The top row is the parameters that we are comparing. The first vertical column shows the mortality risk prediction done by Compass Score. I have grouped them into 5 based on the predicted risk of death. The total number of patients in each group is given next. Thankfully, we did not have many admissions of patients in critically ill group. To make it easy to compare, I've changed the number to percentage of admission. As you can see, 85% of patients belong to low to high risk group. At 30 days, less than 2% died when the risk prediction at admission was 5% or less. However, it is significantly increased for the other 3 groups. 10% for high group, doubling to about 20% in the very high risk group, and nearly 1/3 of critically ill group patients unfortunately passed away within 30 days. I will simply reveal the number for 90 days and 6 months. Let us go to 1 year. At 1 year, the first group had about 11% mortality, and roughly add 10% for every group except for the critical ill group, where you add 20% more than the preceding group. One can see that there is a clear separation between these groups as time goes beyond 2 years. This is another way of showing what is happening in a bar graph at 2 years. As you can see, there is a clear separation between the 5 groups with green bars showing patients who are alive and red bars showing patients who have unfortunately passed away. From this analysis, we conclude that mortality risk correlates to the COMPASS score at admission. I have given you a ballpark figure to make it easy to remember when you do the score at admission. The second take-home message is that males have a higher mortality than females at all times and in all risk. By using COMPASS score at admission, you can understand the patient's physiological status, which is a surrogate marker for predicting mortality of risk both at short and long term. I would want to stress that COMPASS score was not developed to predict long-term mortality. It is validated for 30-day mortality based on over 15 million HES data. By doing COMPASS score at admission, one can have a more informed consent discussion, plan appropriate support they need pre and post-op, decide if they need intensive care support post-op, and will be helpful for completing treatment escalation forms. But the drive here is that COMPASS score could also be used as a tool for optimizing selected patients. Thank you.